Let's work. I get it, bags, get it.
G'day and welcome to the Make It With Myles podcast, where we talk about all things related to building and construction, as well as the real estate industry through the lens of a building inspector. Now, that sort of format's called The Shed, and we also have The Journey. The Journey is more like a personal development thing, which we dabble in every now and then, because I think if we all get better, the world gets better. If any of this finds any value to it all, please give us a follow, please give us a review, all those good things. It really does help us. And share it to someone that's in need, okay? This episode is for people within the industry, more or less, and it is how to better quote jobs to win more work. Very basic. So first thing first, why is quoting so important? Well, it gives you money. It's pretty handy. As well as that, it also feeds your family, kind of necessary. And people pay you based on your quote. That's pretty well it. You exchange a letter for dollar dues. All right. What can go wrong during the quoting process? There's a few things that can go wrong during the quoting process, especially if you do it in a really shit poor way. Okay. So you can lose money. You can never get work in the first place. Businesses can go under. You can ruin professional relationships. You can ruin your client relationships, and if it's really bad, you could lose registrations and things around like that, or have legal action taken against you, which is obviously no bueno. So it is something very important that you do get right and protect yourself and really have strong relationships, especially in the construction industry where it can get a bit shitty at times, I must admit. How can this happen? More or less, you might miss something during the correspondence with the client. You could have missed something on the plans, ignored something on the plans. You're not clear on your scope of works. You withhold information that can impact you during the job. I'll sort of explain these a little bit further on. You don't highlight your inclusions or exclusions. You have shitty legal terms, payment terms, variations, delays, all those types of things. You don't get anything formally agreed to. You don't have any system in place for changes or variations. Bloody important one. You charge too little, or you may charge too much. Your quote is meter rate and you make a mistake. All right. So that's something that does happen quite often, and it's a pain in the ass process. So a couple of things first. It comes down to, there's a couple of things you've got to sort out. First things first is the quoting itself and the quoting process. Okay. So sort of two little things. So the quoting process, and this is based on all the years of quotes and shit I've gone through and obviously done, as well as that had to manage. Look professional. Be professional, present professionally, and execute professionally. Very simple, okay? People do judge you significantly on the way you present, the way you act, the way in which you dress. It is very, very important that if you genuinely want to do good and be good, act good. Very simple, okay? That's one little aspect to sort of look into during the quoting process. Ensure you get clear understanding of the scope of work itself. Make sure you can communicate and educate people about some of these things, okay? So what you're going to come across in a few scenarios is you'll get clients that literally have no clue what the fucking they're talking about, which is very, very common. Now, get very, very clear with them on the scope on exactly what they want, okay? Because when it comes down to expectations, which is where you really need to get their mindset at, they have an expectation, you'll have an expectation, those two need to meet. And that's when dramas are mitigated significantly, okay? If you see something that may be outside your scope but may come close, raise it to the person. If it's the builder, it could be the client or another subcontractor. Now, what I mean by that in particular is, say you do window installations, for example, all right? And with window installations, obviously the window goes in, the cladding goes on, and maybe there's some silicon sealant work that's got to go in place, okay? In some circumstances, there's all these sort of like little grey areas where you as the tradesman don't do that specific task, but it's very close and touches to what you do. And in some circumstances, the builder is, on a balance of probabilities, the builder or the client may assume that you will do X, Y, Z. Okay, a good example would be tiling, for example. Not all tilers do waterproofing. So to put a price together, there's just a single line item, say tiling to wet area, and that's it. And then your client might have this expectation that you're meant to be doing waterproofing as well, which you're not doing. Or you might not even do the caulking. You just do the tiling and that's it. You do Harold Holt and job done. So there are a couple of sort of scenarios like that. So you need to be very, very clear, obviously, on the scope of works, and then also raise any things that will, potentially they could see you with the expectation of that's what you're going to do, basically. This really does help the relationship with all the builders, the clients, because you have their interests at heart, their best interests at heart, okay? So what you're trying to do is ensure that they're not going to get fucked over, which is what you want, and you want that for them because you're a good person, unless you're a dickhead. And it's going to help build that relationship. So there's that trust that gets built between you. So when something does come up, there's a genuine variation, or maybe there's a bit of confusion or some issues, you have that good relationship, you have that good intent, it's going to really help you get through that process. And that's helped me significantly on many, many occasions. And I've achieved some things that other people that I was working with said, there's no fucking way you'll ever get that document signed by that neighbour because he is an absolute psycho. And he was a psycho, but I fucking made it work. Outside of that, if you see an issue within the documentation, raise it. That's a massive one, okay? So especially with, if you're a subcontractor doing a lot of work for builders, you get given a set of plans, you might have fucking 500 pages of documentation to go through, all right? Obviously, you know your specific area. If you see things that aren't correct in two different places, and this happens all the time with documentation, this is why it can be this is where disputes come into play as well, okay? So, if there's two scenarios, it might be, say it's a tile layout or a tile trim or some sort of specific sort of detail that's required. And then on the plan, it just has, the normal way you can do things. And over here, you need to do it this specific way. If they do collide and they don't actually match in regards to what the scope is, raise it straight away. You say, do you want me to do X? Do you want me to do Y? All right. Because if you just assume one and proceed accordingly, that client, the person you're working for, client, builder, whoever it may be, they have this power over you to be like, nah, fucking mate, this is how we're doing it over here. It's clearly stated in the plans, blah, 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 even though there was this over here, which also states something different. Be very clear on exactly what you're going to be doing, okay? And this helps that relationship as well, especially with the builder. They're like, oh, shit, all right, because he has another task to do after that, which is to get clear with the client in regards to what this actual scope's going to be looking like. So, again, very, very important. Helps build those relationships, helps build that trust, and all these types of things during the quoting process is what helps you win work. Doesn't mean, you don't have to win by the cheapest price. You can just win by being good at what you do, being very professional in your manner. You may charge more, but because you've set all this expectations and understanding of like, I'm actually here to help and do a good quality job, that can help get people over the line and pay more money for the task at hand, okay? And that's obviously dependent on specific clients because, if some are cashed up, it's pretty easy process. They just want the best. The ones that are on more of a lower medium budget, they're sort of struggling a little bit. That's where the scenario really helps out significantly. Next thing, if you do see there may be a problem that could arise around your scope of works, be sure to raise it. Now, in this scenario, that's maybe you're a plumber, for example, and you're doing some like a drainage package, and you understand that potentially the sewer connection is going to be 2 meters deep, all right? But it could potentially be at 1.2, right? This happened recently with a bit of documentation we had. Said it's going to be 2.5. And another documentation said it's 1.5 deep. I don't fucking know where we're going to be going. So we just allowed for the 1.5 best case scenario, but we raised it with the client to say, if it does get to 2 meters, then there's going to be a big difference. Okay. So I think it's 2.5. You got to do things a lot differently and a bit more safely and, shore it up or, batter it out, whatever you got to do to get access to the connection point itself. So there is a big significant cost difference between the two. So again, raise these things. Like if there's going to be issues that come up that you can already see within your specific scope of works, raise it. Talk to the builder about it. Don't sign up to a job and then go through the process and then bring it up in the middle of the fucking construction project, then ask for more money because that's a one-way ticket to fucking telling them to hit, kick rocks and they'll find someone that actually gives a shit and wants to sort of work with everyone. And finally, educate the ones that you are pricing for to ensure that they are pricing apples for apples, okay? Obviously, when you go into a situation, most of the time, on a balance of probabilities, there's going to be other guys quoting the job as well. Just educate these people and give them an understanding that they need to ensure that their price is apples for apples, okay? There's no fucking half scope here because old mate over here is somehow 10 grand cheaper. It's because he hasn't allowed for half the job, all right? And there's people like that will always exist, okay? Be that one individual that helps them through the quoting process so they don't get shafted, okay? It shows good intent. And as well as that, like the worst case scenario is this person's going to come out, they might do half a scope and then realize the rest of it's they're not going to get paid for, they're not doing it, they have these expectations, they quoted the job real shitty, and now the client's pissed, all right? And he's going to come crawling back to you and you're going to be like, sorry, mate, like we had an opportunity. All you need to do in that scenario is really have a conversation with the individual and just say, right, just be aware. Make sure the prices are fucking apples for apples, okay? We're doing the exact same scope here. This happens a lot in construction from a builder's perspective. Like I've done many quotes before where we've gone up against other individuals and, look at their price came in at like 150 grand cheaper. where ours was sitting, 1.5, whatever it was. And what we found was that when I asked the questions, because I was very curious, I'm like, there's no fucking way. Like 150 is possible, but it's not. That's significant. They hadn't allowed for like a whole entire landscaping package and things like that. And by the end of it, we were actually better priced. But because they didn't really look into they didn't put the effort into looking into the prices and getting clarity as to what the full scope was, it wasn't apples for apples. So be mindful of that. Really educate people about that. It's very, very important. Outside of that, with the quote itself, this is some of the processes and things that I would recommend, and I do recommend to a couple of guys that reach out to me. First things first, get legal advice that you can actually implement into your everyday quote that explains things like your payment terms, your agreement terms, your delay terms, variation terms, quote expiry terms. Make sure your quote is a fucking schmicko legal document, all right? Now, you got to spend the dollary dues on these people, and they're fucking expensive, trust me. But it is definitely worth it, okay? Because then at least you've got some sort of good quality legal documentation you can fall back on, and your terms are very, very clear in regards to when you take action against that individual to get your money or whatever it may be. Okay, say there's a variation, you have like specific systems in place. Really get systemized in regards to how you do the quoting process, so you don't get shafted down the road. Because there's times too often the only time you need legal action is when you're in strife, and if you're not set up for that scenario, well, it's going to be very, very difficult, and you most likely will just lose money trying to go for a fight, or you'll just lose money because there's just no fight to be had. It's too bad. You've done the processing completely wrong, and that's it. And it just takes one shitty client, and there's plenty of shitty clients out there that get that little bit of power, and all of a sudden they think they're fucking top shit, and they're telling you all these things, and they have no clue what they're talking about. And that is a common occurrence that happens all the time in construction, because I know you're listening to it, and I know you fucking copped it, and it's a pain in the ass process. So if you are a client, don't be that person. If you're a fucking subcontractor, I feel sorry for you. All right, outside of that, specify the documentation that you are quoting from. Very, very important. Now, even, again, as a builder, you could be just a subcontractor quoting a job for a builder. We always get revisions of drawings and revisions of drawings. So make sure you just write the documentation header, like date, plans, and that's it. All right, just so you know that if you ever need to fall back to something to say, oh, that's what I allowed for on this set of documentation, then you're safe. Any sort of variation, any sort of revisions that happen throughout the future are just black and white variations. So you're fucking super squeaky clean there. Outside of that, be specific on your inclusions and how you are going about your scope of works. So for example, cladding system. There might be, you might have a, I don't know, cement sheet cladding system, and on a balanced probability, you see a lot of people put them on battens, for example. All right. Now, you might look at that product itself, and on the drawings, it may say, it's all right, it's going to be on, there's going to be some sarking or whatever it's going to be, some 25mm timber battens, and then we're going to sheet it. All right. If you're not going to do that and you're going to do direct fix, which technically is completely fine for the product and you're allowed to install it like that, make sure you are very specific in regards to what you are including and how you're going about it. Okay, so make sure you say that. This cladding system, we're going to use these trims, and we're going to install direct fix to the frame. We're excluding straightening the frame. You know what I mean? Like, get very clear as to where you start, where you stop. So it's one, it's a little story that's told in a quote, but two, when anyone comes at you for saying, oh, you were meant to do this, oh, isn't it your job to do that? Well, it's pretty obvious what you're doing and what you're not doing. So you can just tell them to kick rocks, which is completely fair and reasonable. Or you can go, right, I can do this. If you want me to frame the wall, straighten the walls as well, this is going to be the cost to straighten the walls. It's like, we can just, if the walls are sweet, we'll just go with this, whatever, like, just be very clear with it. And it helps everyone as well understand that they're not losing any pockets, because from a builder's perspective, we might get a client come up, it's got one liner, install Hebel, sweet. And it doesn't say anything about it's going to be on battens or anything about how the process is going to be. There might be a specific design that's going to be done correctly, or moldings or whatever it might be. They just fucking put a line on them, and then all of a sudden they get to site, and you've got those roughest cowboys ever, and you got nothing to be like, it needs to be installed like this, or it needs to be installed like this, and it just disputes from the start. So just be very clear. It just helps open that communication and makes the process much easier. Next one is have an exclusion section and be detailed as to where your scopes finish. So example, laying hybrid flooring or tiling and excluding any caulking work. another perfect thing you got to do. Put all your exclusions in. All right, we got a quote from the plasterer for a job we're doing at the moment. Very great breakdown. Just everything that we're doing. And like the drawings called up for Villa board in the bathrooms. They clearly wrote in there they're doing WR board. Fine. Alfresco area, it's clearly noted that it's going to get sheeted with Villa board, stop sand sheet, all that sort of stuff. They clearly noted no ceilings allowed for the alfresco ceiling area, all right? So be very clear of what you're doing, what you're not doing. So if they just sent this quote through with a price on it, and then I'm looking at the drawings, my expectations are going to be there's going to be Villa board all through the wet areas, and the expectations is they're at least going to do the ceilings in the alfresco area, because that's what's going to be sheeted. So be very, very, very clear on your exclusions. And like if you need to, there's nothing wrong with like adding another line item for an exclusion that you may see come up, or maybe someone a little bit outside of your scope, and you can just put that line item in there, and they may take you up on the offer, they may not. It doesn't really matter. At least you can sort of be clear as to like, I'm doing this over here. It might be Aggie drains, for example, allowance for fucking $4,000 of Aggie drains. All right, so really be clear on your inclusions. Really be clear on your exclusions. Just put the fucking time and effort into actually discussing and speaking about what you are doing and not doing. Be detailed in your description, but don't break it down to the specific dollar amounts, okay? So this is a very, very important one. You should not have to break your quote down to a fucking line item by line item. That's not necessary. What is more necessary is the description needs to be very specific, just like we've already spoken about, and then you got a dollar number there. That's it. It's all people care about. They care about exactly what you're doing, how much you're going to be doing. Okay, if they start telling you to start breaking costs down and things like that, be hesitant on it. There's no need for you to have to give away all the ins and outs of how your business operates. Just be like, might not be comfortable with it, or you can break it down in sort of specific, somewhat scopes. But when it gets down to material levels and like labor rates and all that sort of shit, just tell them to fucking mind their own business. Okay, it's your business. You do what you want. All right. So you've got all your details pretty well schmicko. Now what you want to do is you want to present it very, very professionally. Okay, include nice branding. Actually give a shit about what you do and who you represent and how your quotes represent yourself. All right, you might even want to add like another sales flyer or some sort of promotable product that goes with your quotes. So maybe you get these flyers printed out at Officeworks, for example. And it's just an example of all the work you've done. Okay, and all these types of things. You may not just be a chippy. You might be you might do furniture design as well and be some other weird fucking shit. Or maybe you're a plumber, but you also do mechanical plumbing. There's like 10,000 different plumbings you can do. Or you're a sparky that does lighting design as well as, just general lighting. Or maybe you do industrial as well. Just put something together that really expresses who you are as a business and just put that in with your quote. Okay, it's going to do a couple of things. One, it's going to show your professionalism to that client, which they're going to appreciate. As well as that, that's another individual who knows who you are, that you're not just a cold random person in the street. You're somewhat of a warm outreach. You understand them a little bit to a degree, and they may know someone in their network looking for an industrial sparky, for example. Okay, maybe their old man's got an entire fucking pig farm that just needs an upgrade. You can pick up a lot of work just by presenting well, doing well. You may not even win that job with the individual, but you may get more work on the outside of that. So just take advantage of all those opportunities and do your best to obviously increase your profitability, which is just get more work. On the end of that, send the quote and follow up with a call. So just call the people. All right, don't just send a quote out and then hope for them to call you. There's nothing wrong with just having a conversation with the person. All right, what you're doing here, this is sales. You're just being friendly. Okay, you're not trying to grill them for anything. You're just like, "G'day, Johnny. How'd you go with that quote, mate? Just let us know if you have any questions or queries. If you get any more prices come through, as I said to you before, just make sure they're apples for apples. If there's anything I can help you with, all good, and I will reach out back in another week. All right. So then at least you can have that conversation and be like, all right, he's got it. They're all sweet. There's times when I've sent quotes and realized it never actually went to the client itself, and I call up, I'm like, just how's it going? They're like, oh, we never got it. I'm like, oh fuck, so I got to fix that whole problem. And it shows good intent as well. It shows that you genuinely care, which is massive. Like, I will much prefer a subcontractor or someone to do work for me that cares a lot about what they do, and if they cost more money, I'll pay more money because I know it's going to be done right, because I can see they've already done the quoting process schmicko and right, and they've been very open with me. That trust and that connection and that relationship that you build with that client, builder, whoever it may be, it goes a very long way. So it's definitely worth putting that effort in. So after the follow-up call, that's it. It's a matter of just sort of following up the quote. and then working to and fro, with regards to these things. If you have very big scopes of work, you'll get the vibe that, all right, you're pretty well the number one contender, but we need to sort of tidy up a couple of things here because there's been a few variations and changes throughout the revisions of the documentation, okay? That's on a bigger scale. On a smaller scale, if it's just going to be most likely you or maybe one other person quoting a job, it's pretty easy to win that if you're just half decent, okay? Now, outside of that, there will always be clients and there will always be people that want to go for the cheapest possible price and have no care about what's literally written in the quote, and they'll go for the cheapest. And they are the ones that are on a current affair, always sooking and fucking making a big deal because they don't understand the process. And that's not their fault. That's just who they are as individuals, and they don't know that they're getting everything that they need because maybe that individual hasn't even, notified them of like, oh, you need to allow for this, you need to allow for this, just so you know, like help these people. They have no clue about what's going on. So just be that person that can sort of steer them in the right directions, and it's worth it. And you form great relationships. And when issues do arise, and it's happened to be numerous times, or when variations arise, it's very easy. The conversation is easy. There's no complaining, there's no concerns or mistrust or this subcontract, this tradesman's trying to shaft me because he's trying to charge me extra. You've already set out the framework for what's happening, so it's just a part of the process, all right? After the follow-up, it's the work itself. So start the work when it is right to go. A lot of things that happen all the time is there'll be a builder or a client, they'll be like, yeah, come out, mate, we're ready to go for you, no dramas. And then you come out there and it's half ready. Now, if it's a big enough scope, well then I guess you could probably start the process, but outside of that, I really find it can be a pain in the ass. If you go out to a job and you're half ready to go and there's shit everywhere, we can't really do what you're meant to be fucking doing, okay? So start it when it's ready to go. Maybe you go into a client's job and they've got to get a permit in place and they're still yet to do the permit. Don't go out and start doing other things because that permit might just get pushed out for another 2 weeks. So you've started half a scope and then you go off to another job and then you've got to come back and the momentum's lost. You already hate the job because you're back and forth. You just wanted the 1, 2, 3 days, whatever it was. So just be very clear and get them to be clear with you to start when the work is ready to go. To simply follow up on their expectations and execute accordingly. Very simple. Just do what you said you're going to do. Expectations are met. They pay the money. Everyone's expectations are met. You have a good relationship with the client. You move on to the next one. They froth everything you've done. Everything was done perfectly. That's how they're going to say it. It was paid, cleaned up, done. That's going to get you that word of mouth, really build up that network, and just keep rolling it over. Obviously, it's a slow burn at the start trying to build out a good word of mouth sort of network, but in time, it pays very well for you. I think even with my inspections at the start, I used to spend $1,000 a month to get like work come in. And then got to a certain point where I just stopped it completely, and I still get heaps of work in because I've done what everyone's expectations was of me. Went to the house, inspected it thoroughly, communicated with the client, had good conversation, helped out where I could, provided a quality report. They paid me, and that was it. That's all you got to do. Just do good, and it will all come back. Trust. The other one as well is over-communicate. This is a very important one. So let's say, for example, you're doing a home renovation project. You might be, let's say you're a plumber or something, all right? And there's always stages where you got to sort of come back here and, back and forth. Even when the builder knows their shit, always communicate to the builder like, all right, we need this, then we can do this, and this, all right? Or it's a client, for example, is like, all right, just so you know, you need to make sure this happens here. Then I can come in and do this, and this. Then you can do X, Y, and Z. Like, you may not know the full scope, but at least you always know what's happening in and around what you're doing. Just over communicate. It's not, people will not get annoyed at you for just talking too much and explaining too much about their scope of works and what they're doing. That just shows that you have good intent again, and that you just genuinely want to get the job done that's best for you and also best for the client, builder, whoever it may be. All right. If there are any changes or issues or sort of unforeseen problems that do arise during the process, like while you're on site, immediately call the client or whoever is you're employed by. Call the client. Make sure they get understanding of what's going on. Explain the situation, okay? You need to get their commitment before you do fucking anything. Do not proceed to do any sort of variations or changes or anything like that. Make sure you actually make sure they understand what the impact is, why it's been caused, why it's a variation, and then don't rely on like a handshake agreement or anything like that. It can be as simple, like obviously an email is completely reasonable. You put an email together as per discussion, blah, 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 slap it all out, send it off. If you need to price the work, price the work. If you're going to say you're going to do it on an hourly rate, you say you're going to do it on an hourly rate. You tell them what the hourly rate's going to be. You tell them as much information as possible. Okay, so it's very, very transparent in regards to what these changes are. And because you've done such a fucking ripper job on the quoting process, they can see that you clearly excluded to do additional flashings around windows or whatever the case may be. Okay, because variations come up. We don't want them. We don't like them. People think we make a lot of money off them. They're fucking annoying. We just want to go do our job and then leave. So ideally, and you deserve to be paid for the variations as well. Okay, so it goes both ways. Like you need to make sure you make money. You're not losing money. You're not here to do favors or anything like that. It's business. Okay, this is my service. This is how much I'm going to charge. Oh, there's a variation. All right. You've already got a variation terms policy within your quoting itself. So it's very clear on how the process looks and works. And your client is committing to that process. Okay, so it might maybe have a deposit up front for a variation, or once it's signed, the variation is paid upon completion of that scope of work. So maybe you've got a big scope of works and all of a sudden you've had to add some Aggie drains. All right, well, there'll be a separate invoice that will be paid for that variation that's paid directly after that little scope's done. So you're getting the money there on the spot and you've still got your main quote sitting in place, which you're slowly chunking your way through based on how your payment systems work. Based on what I've come across is the best way to go about it, and it's a very important one to do, and just don't ignore it. Don't put your head in the sand. Don't every now and then you can do a couple of favors. That's cool, but don't fucking sell yourself short. All right, you're here to make money. You're here to do the things like we said at the start, like I don't know, feed your fucking family and survive on this planet. So you're completely entitled to do it. Do it the right way. Outside of that, if your client thinks they're top shit, which is very, very common, this is such a weird thing that happens often where they're just a novice bruncher that lives in their house and goes out with the ladies, and all of a sudden you're doing some work for this individual, and they just have this power over you or this authority, and they think they're top shit. Just stay firm. All right, be confident in what you do. Stay firm. Don't let them fucking push you around. I know there's a lot of there's a lot of apprentices that have sort of reached out to me with this, where they might do a couple of cashies and they lose money and they're getting just pushed around. Stay firm. This is exactly what you're doing. You're the professional here. They're the client. Educate them as best as possible. Make sure obviously all the quoting process is completely, it's very, very black and white, and just highlight the whole scenario. Okay, so if someone's trying to push you around and like hold something over you to say, oh, well, you just needed this. This is what you're allowed for. You don't even give them the opportunity to get to that point. Because you're so detailed, you're so well presented, you've shown your inclusions, you've shown your exclusions, you may have broken down just some scopes in pricing, you've communicated to them significantly back and forth, got really clear on the scope of works. These people, they're clients. They're not meant to be some fucking authority power over you because all of a sudden they're paying you some money to do your job. So yeah, that's a weird thing that sort of happens often I come across, which is a bizarre thing, but it's how it is in the industry. But yeah, so basically that's the process for me. This if you were to execute this process, you would build great relationships with builders, great relationships with clients, and this is what sort of helps you build that brand in regards to who you are and what you do. Make sure any opportunity you get that you have a client or a potential client, that you sell yourself to that individual and your services, and not just for that specific job, but for other jobs that happen around it. Again, like I stated before, put together some flyers and stuff like that. Actually, like promote and show off what you do. It's a small amount of money to be invested, and this is why, like the social media side of things is also very beneficial and helpful. Like you can even have that on your quote and have like links to your Instagram or whatever you do to show off the work that you do, because that's just going to give more. It just continues to feed that sort of trust that your client or builder has with you to be like, all right. He's pretty fancy. Like he's got some very good high quality things. And then their expectation is like, fuck, the price is going to be very expensive. And then all of a sudden the price comes in and you're just like mid-range. Mate, you are getting that job any day of the week. It's very simple. And the more and more and more, and obviously it comes down to supply and demand, the more busy and busier you get, that's when you start increasing your pricing. Okay. But you've already met your expectations of what your price is going to be because you've displayed yourself so professionally and you look so good and you do such a good quality job. That's how you build on your earnings, really. Okay, so that's just something really to consider. I hope this has found some value to some of you gentlemen and gentlewomen. Outside of that, have yourself a ripper arvo morning, day, whatever bloody time it is, and I will see you on the next one. Who bloody roo.
Let's work. I get it,